Hello, and welcome to my book summary of Jehovah's Witnesses, a religion based on the occult and spiritism. This is a second book published by Tammy Dickerson that I have reviewed, and this one seems very, very interesting. Most Jehovah's Witnesses, I would probably say all Jehovah's Witnesses, based on the title of this book, would say that this is all ridiculous lies. I would probably even say a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses would probably think the same thing as well. That's just ridiculous. But this book goes into these mystical and weird spiritistic practices and provides watchtower scans from their own publications to prove how they are practicing such things. And so we will commence with chapter 1. But here is the foreword of the book, which says, "The Watchtower Society may insist that the information contained in this book is false, twisted, and full of lies. Challenge them to prove their accusations. This book is not intended for purposes of hate or prejudice against the Jehovah's Witnesses. Its only intention is for education so that potential converts may have full knowledge of what kind of Christian denomination they are actually getting into. This book is written from a biblical point of view." And I will try and point out the Jehovah's Witness point of view as well as we go along. So chapter 1 is entitled Overview. What is this book about? Well, it's about a religious denomination, which publicly denounces all activities related to mysticism, the occult, spiritism, so on and so forth. They denounce practices of necromancy, channeling, false prophecy, astrology, and all other forms of spiritism as being demon-inspired and satanic. It's also about a denomination whose core doctrine is heavily steeped in the very things in which they denounce as satanic. In fact, why don't we take a look at one of their quotes to see how they view it? So here we have a screenshot from the book, What Does the Bible Really Teach? On page 220. And notice what this book says about spiritism in the yellow highlight. It says, "Since all forms of spiritism are demon-inspired, it is not surprising that the Bible calls Babylon the Great a dwelling place of demons." So all forms of spiritism, it doesn't matter what kind it is, according to the Jehovah's Witnesses, they are all demon-inspired. So the book will go on to show how from the very beginning of the roots of this religion, back in the days of Zion's Watchtower and Charles Taze Russell, which, by the way, many people view Jehovah's Witnesses as an offshoot of the Bible students because so many things changed after the death of Charles Taze Russell. She will show actual scans of how Russell had published many teachings which were based on the occult arts of astrology, pyramidology, and numerology. And it didn't end with C.T. Russell. His successor, Joseph Franklin Rutherford, also known as the Judge, continued his occult ties and added many other mystical practices such as necromancy and channeling. Didn't stop with Russell or Rutherford. Nathan Noor continued to support these supernatural practices during his term and even published a new Bible which was influenced by known spiritists. It didn't end with Noor. Frederick Franz, Milton Henschel, Don Adams, and along with the creation of the governing body in the mid-70s, continued to follow these influences of necromancy, channeling, astrology, and spiritism up to this day. So, although Watchtower openly condemns these practices. Reality is that they embrace these practices and they disguise them as biblical truths. Now, you're probably saying, come on, Rick, really? How do they do that? Well, they do this by skipping around scriptures and taking Bible passages out of context, creating a patchwork of unrelated scriptures that seem to go together, and then to create counterfeit doctrines. And so we all know how good Watchtower is by taking passages out of context. They'll take one scripture and disregard the rest of the chapter, what it's really dealing with. Take another scripture from another part of the Bible, again out of context, and then bam, we now have a teaching. Everlasting life in a paradise on earth. So that's how the Watchtower works. Are these things wrong? That's not for me to say. I'm not going to say these practices are wrong. But if you do believe in the Bible, as the Jehovah's Witnesses claim that they do claim that everything they teach is based on the Bible, then the Bible is not vague. These practices are condemned by God and have no place for a Christian. And so the Bible tells us to avoid all types of divination, spirit mediums, seeking of omens, astrology, numerology, communication with spirits, communication with the dead, pyramidology, scrying, palm reading, so on and so forth. Any of these supernatural activities are condemned by the Bible. So underneath the nice smiling faces you see coming at your door and knocking at your door on Saturday and Sunday mornings, behind that layer of superficial happiness, there is much spiritual darkness hiding in that organization. Now the author points out, in all fairness, I must point out that the regular Jehovah's Witness membership is not made aware of most of the information presented in this book. Why is that? Because the Watchtower Society strongly discourages members from personally investigating its own history. So the vast majority of Jehovah's Witnesses know only what the Watchtower Society currently teaches, and what they teach is basically a sanitized version of the facts. So this book is going to expose the Watchtower as having these spiritistic roots in which they condemn themselves. And we're going to show screenshots of those sources as well. That way there's no question and doubt as to what's going on behind this religious organization, or as I like to say, this religious cult. So anyways, this is going to end chapter 1. Thanks for listening. Thank you for taking time to listen to my summary of the book, Jehovah's Witnesses, a religion based upon the occult and spiritism. Post your comments, like and share this video, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for chapter 2.